In a world often defined by complex diplomatic maneuvers, intervention can come from unexpected quarters. On the 26th of July, 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump made a direct and forceful entry into a spiraling regional crisis. From a visit to Scotland, he placed calls to the leaders of Thailand and Cambodia, urging them to halt a border conflict that had turned deadly. These were not mere pleasantries or standard diplomatic overtures. President Trump announced that both Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet and Thailand's acting Prime Minister Phumtham Wechayachai had agreed to pursue an immediate ceasefire and peace. This development, communicated via his social media platform, thrust the Southeast Asian dispute onto the global stage in a dramatic fashion. The president's intervention presented a clear and simple message to the warring nations: stop the fighting now. His approach bypassed the traditional, often slower channels of international diplomacy. Instead, he opted for direct leader-to-leader conversations, a hallmark of his foreign policy style. The announcement suggested that both nations were not only ready to talk, but were also eager to resume trade negotiations with the United States, linking the cessation of hostilities directly to economic incentives. For observers and the international community, this was a classic Trumpian move, blending personal diplomacy with significant economic leverage to achieve a swift, if potentially fragile, result in a volatile situation. The backdrop for these calls was a conflict that had erupted suddenly and violently, becoming the most severe clash between the two neighbors in over a decade. The intervention from Washington served as a powerful external pressure, forcing both governments to publicly confront the consequences of continued fighting. By framing the conversation around peace and shared economic interests, President Trump aimed to shift the focus from territorial disputes to the tangible benefits of de-escalation. His public declaration put the onus squarely on the Thai and Cambodian leaders to follow through on their commitments, turning a regional conflict into a test of their willingness to engage with a major global power. This diplomatic push by the United States is not without precedent under the current administration. President Trump drew parallels between this effort and his administration's role in mediating a ceasefire between India and Pakistan in May of the same year. This comparison serves to build a narrative of his presidency as one that actively brokers peace in global hotspots. For the leaders in Bangkok and Phnom Penh, the calls from the White House were a clear signal that the world was watching. The fighting was no longer a contained bilateral issue, but one with significant international implications, particularly concerning their relationship with the world's largest economy. The urgency of President Trump's intervention is underscored by the devastating human toll of the recent fighting. The conflict, which ignited on the 23rd of July 2025, escalated with shocking speed. What began with a landmine explosion that wounded 5 Thai soldiers quickly spiraled into a full-blown military exchange involving artillery and small arms fire. Over 3 harrowing days, the violence claimed the lives of more than 30 people. Reports indicate that Thailand lost 7 soldiers and 13 civilians, while Cambodia suffered the loss of 5 soldiers and 8 civilians. These numbers represent families shattered and communities plunged into grief, a stark reminder of the real-world consequences of unresolved political tensions. Beyond the tragic loss of life, the conflict has created a massive humanitarian crisis in the region. The fighting has forced more than 130,000 civilians to flee their homes, seeking safety from the shelling and chaos that has engulfed their villages. These displaced individuals, a vast and vulnerable population, now face an uncertain future in temporary shelters, their livelihoods destroyed and their communities turned into battlegrounds. The scale of this displacement highlights the indiscriminate nature of the violence, which has spread to new flashpoints in Thailand's Trat province and Cambodia's Persat province, widening the arc of instability and fear. The historical context of this dispute is long and deeply entrenched, centered around contested territory, particularly near ancient temple sites like Tamoan Tom and Preah Vihar. These areas have been a source of nationalist pride and recurring tension for generations. The recent escalation, however, was preceded by a series of smaller incidents that steadily raised the temperature along the border. The killing of a Cambodian soldier in May 2025 led to both sides reinforcing their military presence, creating a powder keg atmosphere where any small spark could ignite a much larger explosion. The landmine incident on July 23rd proved to be that fatal spark. The international community has watched the rapidly deteriorating situation with growing alarm. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres expressed his deep concern and issued a plea for an immediate end to the violence. At an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, the gravity of the situation was on full display as representatives from both Thailand and Cambodia traded accusations, each blaming the other for initiating the aggression. This diplomatic standoff at the highest levels illustrated the deep-seated animosity that has made a peaceful resolution so difficult to achieve, leaving civilians caught in the crossfire. President Trump's strategy for securing a ceasefire was a two-pronged approach, combining the promise of peace with the threat of economic pain. The core of his message was a powerful ultimatum. If the fighting did not stop, both Thailand and Cambodia would face significant trade repercussions. Specifically, Trump threatened to withhold pending trade deals that were crucial for both nations' economies. This was not an idle threat. He further warned of imposing a steep 36% reciprocal tariff on all goods from both countries, with a firm deadline of the 1st of August, 2025. This tariff threat is part of a broader, more aggressive trade agenda, making it a credible and formidable lever of influence. The response from the leaders of Thailand and Cambodia was cautious but immediate. Acting Thai Prime Minister Phumtham Wechayachai confirmed that he had agreed to a ceasefire in principle, a significant step towards de-escalation. However, his acceptance came with a crucial condition. He needed to see a sincere intention from Cambodia to honor the agreement. This statement reflects the deep-seated mistrust that has fueled the conflict for years. It suggests that while the external pressure from the U.S. is welcome, true peace will require genuine commitment and verifiable actions on the ground from both sides, not just words spoken over a phone call. It is important to note that the United States was not the only external power working to quell the violence. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, was also actively engaged in mediation efforts. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, in his capacity as the current chair of ASEAN, had already put forward a ceasefire proposal. Both Thailand and Cambodia had reportedly agreed in principle to this regional initiative as well. This indicates a dual track of diplomacy, with both regional peers and a global superpower applying pressure simultaneously. Trump's high-profile, economically focused intervention likely accelerated the process that ASEAN had already started. The effectiveness of this heavy-handed approach has been a subject of debate among policy experts. Gregory Poling, an analyst at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, noted that while President Trump's direct involvement could indeed speed up the peace talks, the strategy carries risks. The threat of withholding trade deals and imposing tariffs could backfire if the administration does not follow through, potentially undermining U.S. credibility in future negotiations. The success of this intervention, therefore, hinges not only on achieving an immediate ceasefire, but also on the careful management of the economic threats that brought the parties to the table. The immediate goal of halting the bloodshed appears to be within reach, thanks to the combined diplomatic pressure from the United States and ASEAN. However, securing a temporary ceasefire is merely the first step on a long and difficult road towards lasting peace. The fundamental issues that have plagued Thai-Cambodian relations for decades, particularly the unresolved border demarcations and competing historical claims, remain. For the ceasefire to hold and evolve into a stable peace, both nations must engage in sincere, sustained dialogue aimed at addressing these root causes. This will require political will, compromise, and a shared vision for a future free from conflict. The importance of a peaceful resolution extends far beyond the borders of Thailand and Cambodia. The stability of the entire Southeast Asian region is interconnected. A prolonged conflict between two key members of ASEAN threatens to undermine the bloc's unity, economic progress, and collective security. It could create regional instability, disrupt vital supply chains, and deter foreign investment. affecting the prosperity of millions. Therefore, neighbors like Malaysia and the broader international community have a vested interest in ensuring that this ceasefire transitions into a permanent settlement. The future of ASEAN as an effective regional organization depends on its ability to manage and resolve disputes among its members. President Trump's intervention has undeniably changed the dynamic of the conflict, bringing a new sense of urgency to the peace process. By linking the fighting directly to trade, he has highlighted the economic interdependence of the modern world and the powerful role it can play in conflict resolution. While his methods may be unconventional, the result has been a clear commitment from both sides to cease hostilities and return to the negotiating table. The challenge now is to translate this externally induced momentum into an internally driven peace process that is durable and respected by all parties involved. Ultimately, the responsibility for building a lasting peace rests with the leaders and people of Thailand and Cambodia. The international community can mediate, encourage, and even pressure, but it cannot impose a genuine resolution. The recent violence has served as a tragic reminder of the cost of inaction and the destructive power of unresolved grievances. For the sake of the more than 130,000 people displaced and in memory of the dozens killed, finding a path to peaceful coexistence is not just a political objective, it is a profound human necessity. The future stability and prosperity of the region depend on it.